On behalf of the Professional Baseball Strength and Conditioning Coaches Society, I'd like to welcome you to the PBSCCS podcast. I'm your host, Chris Messina.
All right, everybody. I'm here with Goldy Simmons. Goldy, thanks for coming on, man. Appreciate your time. Tell the listeners about yourself, if you would, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Chris, first off, man, thanks for having me back, man. I know we've done this maybe this is the third time, I believe. So, yeah, man, always happy to be on and share and, give some insight. So, long story short, I was, in professional baseball for 10 years, between Kansas City and Chicago White Sox. As of last year, kind of switched it up a little bit and joined the NBA. So left late September of 2024, and I've been in the NBA ever since. So yeah, man, just grinding and doing the NBA swing out here in Phoenix.
We'll get into some of the differences between NBA and MLB, but just kind of talk about your journey to the current role in case there's anybody listening that aspires to either get to the big leagues or to the NBA.
Yeah, so it's a grind. You'll find yourself taking on, early on, getting your CSCS, working through various internships with, Major League Baseball. There's 5, 6 different levels that you'll have to climb through. And even when you climb through that, there's coordinator roles. So I was blessed to kind of navigate through, the minor league system, with Kansas City and Chicago White Sox. More so Chicago White Sox. I only spent one season in the AZL with the Royals, but over time, you just climb, and next thing you know, you're kind of knocking on the door of the big leagues, and that's I was very blessed and fortunate to have the opportunity with the Chicago White Sox. Going from rookie ball all the way through A ball, eventually taking on a coordinator role, and eventually getting the opportunity to serve at the major league level for 3 years. So really, it's just about being, in my viewpoint, it's just about being consistent, knowing your why, building really good relationships, understanding people, understanding players, and then, eventually just, waiting your turn, and then just trying to capitalize on the opportunity when it's presented.
Yeah, the waiting your turn thing is probably easier said than done. I don't know about
Right.
you, but like from my experience when I was in the minor leagues coming up, I was like, I should be in the big leagues. I should be in the big leagues. Why am I not in the big leagues? Instead of just like, hey, just do the job really well here, and
Right.
eventually your time will come. Because a lot of that's out of your control, right? If big
For
league
sure.
spot opens up, not only are they looking at multiple people in your organization, but they're looking at people in other organizations as well. And sometimes you can have a really great interview and somebody else comes in with more experience and there's really nothing you can do. So if it's something you're really passionate about and really want to do, I think that waiting piece is a really important like detail to hammer that,
Sure.
at the end of the day, like I'm in my early 30s. If I wanted to get back to the big leagues and that was my ultimate goal, like what's to say I can't wait until I'm 50? Like, what am I going to do in the next 20 years? Eventually I get there and I achieve my goal, right?
Right.
There's something to be said about being patient, but still being driven, still working, but still understand that a lot of that stuff may be out of your hands or out of your control.
100%. And what I would echo there too is, just being where your feet are. I know a lot of people, as you mentioned, in your case, you were kind of like, I really want to get there, I want to get there, I want to get there. How do I get there? And then you become like overzealous and like maybe a little more hungry than you should be. And, that's also kind of frowned upon. You feel like you're stepping on people's toes and, doing the wrong things and trying to get to a higher place the wrong way. So what I would also kind of make a note of with individuals is just really being where your feet are, just being really good at the opportunity that's presented to you, whether that's in rookie ball, A ball, double A, whatever it may be, just being the very best at the opportunity that's presented to you and what's in front of you.
Totally agree. What is your best professional baseball story that you have? Something that makes you laugh,
Oh
something
man,
that yeah, see, that's my
man.
favorite
Okay,
reaction because I know something
okay.
immediately came to mind. So what do you got for me?
Yeah, yeah, man. So this goes back to my second year in Kannapolis, which is it was low A. Now they're Kannapolis Cannonballers. At the time, we were the Kannapolis Intimidators of the South Atlantic League. Um, like there's something to be said about being passionate and hungry, but at times, if you let it slip a little further than it should, I'll give you my story, and that'll be kind of like case in point. We were kind of going on, an 11 game. I think it was either eight. It was like in between 8 and 11 game to skid. And what had happened was we had a ping pong table, as you probably know, in the clubhouse, which is great. Guys are, working hand-eye coordination, being reactive, which is all fun and games. But there was also a point in time where it became like the FIFA World Cup, and guys were wearing their bandanas and they were sweating. And when it came game time, there was no energy left for gameplay, and it was noticeable, right? Like guys weren't able to track the ball down. Middle infielders weren't able to get in the hole. And I was watching this as a strength coach, and I'm tracking these guys 90s, and I'm like, guys are slower, and I'm like, all right, man, like something's got to change. And so eventually, man, like we were like in between that 8 and 11 game skid, man, and I just had it. And I was like, you know what? This is it. The ping pong table is done. And I'm heated. It's about the sixth inning. I go in and I grab the first bat I see, man, and I just have at it. I tear this ping pong table to shreds. Our clubhouse guy is standing there looking at me. His name was Willie. He's standing there just frozen, eyes wide open. He's watching me just bash this thing into the ground. Um, the turn of events happen is about 20 minutes after that. So we're looking at about the eighth inning, a comeback starts to happen. And I'm like, no way. We're down like 8-2 or something like that. And I look up and it's 8-5, 8-6. And we're in the eighth inning, and I'm like, no way. I just thrashed this thing and we're about to make a comeback. Sure enough, man, we make the comeback. We win the game. The guys come in. I'm standing in the clubhouse, man. Guys walk in and they're just frozen. They're just seeing the damage on the ground and they're just frozen. Our manager comes in and right away he's like, yeah, Goldie, like he's like, yeah, man, let's go to the office and chat. And I'm like, damn,
It's
damn,
incredible.
right?
Oh my
So,
goodness.
right away it was like, all right, man, I'll go get a new ping pong table this week, like replace the ping pong table. And then it just became like the running joke. Like, God forbid we put a ping pong table in here with Goldie around. And, our farm director at the time, like, I think he appreciated it. Because when he approached me about it, he kind of had a smile and he was just like, I think he appreciated the passion.
Mm.
It showed that I cared. So yeah, man, long story short, be careful about breaking ping pong tables prior to the end of a game because you never know what's gonna
Yeah,
happen.
wait until the game is over or until the next
Right,
morning. Was that the
right.
first time you lost your cool around them?
To that extent, yes. Like, you have the powwows like during stretch where a
Yeah,
guy's
yeah,
not
yeah.
stretching and you stop stretch and you kind of like get everybody back in line. But that was the first time I had just like fully let it go and was like, I've had it. Um, you know, I'd rather be the ping pong table than anybody else. So
Mhm.
like I was more proud of myself for not taking it out on any player or anybody. It was just like, let me get this off my chest without hurting anybody. So I was proud of that moment.
I mean, the thing is, like, you're a big guy, right? So, like, guys like ourselves, we're bigger, like, we're pretty even keel, but there's
Yeah,
always like that in there that guys know, hey, this guy could lose it and like
for
really go
sure.
off. And when you do, it's either like everybody falls in line and is super respectful, or they're like, oh, we got him. And then it just becomes this thing that they just bash you about and like, oh yeah, remember when you threw a med ball off of the roof or something because you were so mad? Remember when you smashed the table? Remember when you did this? And they're like,
Yeah.
you're never gonna let me live that one down. Or they're like, oh shit, this guy means business. Now, if you guys would have lost that game, everybody would have been like, oh, we got to get in line. But because they
Yes.
came back and won,
Yes.
everybody's like, oh, really? You want to take our ping
Completely
pong
changed
table
the
out?
narrative, man.
Mm-hmm.
Completely changed the
100%.
narrative. So yeah, man, that's my spiel there, man.
Yeah, I would say the other two things, like for anybody listening that's either not in baseball or young in baseball, losing streaks happen. They
Right.
really suck. And baseball is so long that you will go through stretches where you lose 8 or 10 games. Everything feels absolutely hopeless. And then there'll be times where you win 8 or 10 games and everything feels amazing. And the
Right.
season just ebbs and flows like that. So you have to learn how to handle those ebbs and flows in an appropriate manner and still get guys to work, whether you're winning
Right.
or losing. Because those are kind of where those right? Like 80% of your games are kind of like up or down one way or the other. You win 2, you lose 3, you win 4, you
Right.
lose. Like it's back and
Right.
forth. But it's those outlier stretches of time where, hey, we won 8 in a row. I don't need to do shit today. Like, no, you still need to work. Or like, hey,
Right.
we lost 8 in a row. Like, I really don't feel like doing this. I got to mix up the juju. Like, no, you need to still do
Right.
your work. Like, it's if
Right.
you can navigate those, then that's really where like a lot of things are just different. So, and
For
then the
sure.
other thing is if you're in low A, you are never out of a game. It could be
100%.
15-0 and someone could come back. It's just that's the
100%.
nature of that level of
Right.
baseball.
Right. 100%. And look here, like nothing against having a good time, nothing against ping pong. I just think when that became the sole focus of the day was like, let's get to the championship round in the ping pong
Oh
match
yeah.
and not set the stage for winning a ball game at 7 p.m. That's when we needed to course correct.
Yeah, I mean, I was in AAA and we had a ping pong table and we had like a huge clubhouse, one of the biggest I've seen in AAA. And the table was right in the middle of the room. And we had guys that were so good that they were like backed out into the edges, and the whole clubhouse had to like operate around these guys. And then like guys are late to stretch, and the manager's like, dude, can we get these guys on time? And I'm like, all right. And they're in there playing ping pong. And then other people are watching. And then it's like you said, they're having like a ping pong tournament. And I'm like, guys, I understand the value of this, but also you're taking it too far. Like
Yes.
let's draw the line here. So I mean, I don't know if I'm a better man or you're a better man because you did smash it and I didn't smash it. There were many times where I wanted to smash it and it probably would have got my point across. So
Right. Right. Right.
there are days where I'm like, I really wish I would have smashed that
Right.
table
Right.
because
Right.
maybe it would have turned our fortunes around. But either way, yeah, I think the moral of the story: don't smash it until the game's over.
Right. Yes.
What do you believe in within strength and conditioning that others think you are crazy for believing? And maybe this has changed
Yeah.
since the last time we spoke, now that you've been at the highest level of 2 different professional
Yeah.
sports, or maybe it's the same.
Yeah. Yeah. I would definitely say that. And I don't know that people would think I'm crazy. There may be, a handful of individuals that agree with me here potentially, but I would say that we put a lot on ourselves in our space in the strength conditioning realm to really drive performance and, optimize strength and optimize power and all of those things. And, what I've learned over the last 10 to 12 years is that, you know, these guys are at this level for a reason, and they could probably do without a lot that we're putting onto them from a strength and power output. Like there's a reason that they're very good at the skill, right? They're naturally gifted. I think, I feel like we don't give, at least top tier athletes. And when I say like top tier, I mean like elite, MLB, NBA guys. I think we don't give them enough credit for their ability to harness and express skill, right? Like they're already very good at what they do. Um, I feel like we put maybe a lot more into what is actually needed from a physical standpoint, right? They could probably do with a lot less. is a simple way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting take. And I think I probably agree with you, just having been at the top, at the highest level of MLB and just being around some really, really elite players. I've always wondered if like, are we truly making them better or are we making them worse by putting too much on them? And that's not just strength and conditioning, right? Like
Right.
they're getting pulled to do extra hitting or extra ground balls or extra mound work, or is sometimes better to just do less and just let them be themselves? Or is all of that work what's keeping them at the highest level? And I'm not really sure there's an answer all the time, but
Right.
I've always wondered if you just like I had this conversation with one of my coordinators in my first year with the Pirates. And he was like, there is part of me that wants to just set a group aside where they do nothing for 6 weeks, no training in the weight room,
Yeah.
no conditioning, and just see if anything is different than the group that trains. He's like, you could never do that because the organization would never allow it. But he
Right.
was like, I bet the results would be closer than you think after 6 weeks of separating those two. And I've always thought about that. I've always wondered, like, like these
Yeah.
guys are so good at what they do. Like, do they need more or do they just need
Right.
to keep being themselves? I don't know.
Right. And I would say like from an MLB standpoint, like these guys spend a lot of time tracking, tracking balls down, moving side to side, so they're naturally getting like their linear, their lateral, and occasionally when you got to jump in baseball, you get a little bit of that too. So, and I know I can, from just watching the NBA over the last year is like there's so much that happens in a game. It's so intense. Like if you've ever watched an NBA game up close, it'll really open your eyes to just how much is happening on the court from a physical standpoint. Like biomechanically and physiologically, like there's just so much going on. So you're almost like, really, like there's not a ton we should have to do. Obviously, if somebody's dealing with something like, acutely or chronically, like you address it. But at the end of the day, like the game, I feel like gives you enough of a stimulus to kind of like, move forward.
Do you think it's because strength coaches are trying to justify their jobs? That's probably a very big philosophical thing, but it almost seems like not just with training, but sometimes we take on like we need to be the culture person. We need to be the voice of reason for them. We need to be the therapist. We need to help them with nutrition. We need to help them with training. We need like we take all these things on that aren't necessarily asked of us sometimes. Sometimes they are, but sometimes they're not. And I don't know if it's just to like justify of like, yeah, see, we're part of the staff, we belong, we did this, or like, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's an ego thing or what, but sometimes I'm just like,
Yeah.
listen, we got a dietitian. You don't need to talk to me. Their office is right there. I can walk you
Right.
to their office and they
Right.
will give
Right.
you a
Right.
much better answer than me versus like, oh yeah, you should do this, do this. I don't know. Maybe you have
Right.
thoughts.
Yeah, no, I definitely I agree with that. And I think it's a culmination of all of that, right? I think there's a little bit of ego in the space. There's a little bit of, proving your value in the space, defining what it is that you're doing and then executing, which I totally understand. Like if you're presented with a strength conditioning job, you're going to do strength conditioning, right? You're going to execute. And then I think, like more recently, like you said, people like to dip their hands in multiple pots to say that they're versatile and kind of create that mantra as well. So I do think it's a little bit of all that. But I do think, as of late, organizationally, I think, a lot of teams in professional sports are doing a really good job of setting the stage, with like directors and heads and things like that, to allow there to be, just an understanding of the roles and expectations and just really kind of castrating people to what they're supposed to be doing and holding them accountable to that. Um, so I do think that kind of helps with a lot of that. But I do think there's probably some places that still the waters are a little muddy and people are trying to take on maybe more than what their job description entails. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and that's not to say that strength and conditioning and performance training and all of that is not important. It is obviously.
Right.
But the reality is if we were sick or injured or something happened to us and we didn't show up for a day of work or a couple of days of work, one, they would still play the game that night.
Right.
2, they would still operate at a very high level all day. And 3, they would probably go in the weight room and do something. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
they'd
No
come
doubt.
in and they'd take care of themselves. Would it be to the same level as if they had the coaching and the guidance of us being there? Probably not, but would it be good enough to get them ready to play that night and not hurt themselves? Most of them, yeah, right? Most of them have been around sport and training and things like that enough to kind of understand what works for them, how it works, like when they're pushing too far and something doesn't feel right. Like
Right.
they kind of have a good idea. We're just kind of there to like keep them within the bumper lanes most of the time. Like, I don't know. It's just, I like I said, when I was in the big leagues, Kiyoshi told me that he's like, if we didn't show up today, like if we both got COVID, because we were up there during COVID time, he's like, they'd still do the same stuff. Like they'd come in, they'd take care of their soft tissue, they'd do their prep work. Some of them would lift some weights, they would throw their weighted balls, they get ready, they go out. Hell, they would even run. Like even if we weren't there, I know they all complain about running, they'd still go out and run. They'd do something to get them ready to play that night. So
Yeah.
sometimes it's just an ego check, and sometimes like looking in the mirror and like really understanding what our value is and not like overplaying that. And
Right.
sometimes that's hard for people because like you said, that there's a lot of turnover in organizations, and it's a lot of like, look at sometimes, not always, but hey, look at me, look what I'm doing, I'm helping the team
Right.
with this, and somebody else like, but I'm doing this. It's like if we all just do the job we were assigned,
Right.
from the highest level down,
Right. Right.
they put these responsibilities there knowing that if we all do what we're supposed to do at a really high level, we'll succeed,
Right.
or at least
100%.
we have a really good chance to succeed.
100%. And I think that just goes back to what we talked about, prior to this, was like just being where your feet are and just executing at a high level with what it is that you are to do, with what you were tasked to do from an organization. So, yeah, I think that could be extremely helpful in eliminating some of that, the ego, some of the self-preservation, and that look at me approach when it comes to strength conditioning.
For sure.
All right, everybody, that's going to conclude part one of this interview with Goldy. I hope you enjoyed this one. This part's a little bit on the shorter side, but I still think there is a lot of really good information. Whether it's his story about smashing the ping pong table, as funny as it is, we've all been there, and there are some lessons to take from that. And then, there's a little bit more in the dialogue that we had about doing less with elite level athletes. And, there are some really thought-provoking things in that part of the interview that I took a lot of notes on, and I hope you did too. So 3 things that I took from Goldy in this part of the episode: regardless of where you aspire to go, you have to stay present and do the job to the best of your ability in your current role. Sometimes the solution to the problem is to actually have your athletes do less, and your ultimate responsibility in this field is to serve others on a daily basis to help them achieve their goals. The remainder of this episode is going to be diving into life in the NBA, how it compares to life in MLB, and there are going to be a lot of really good things in that one. So be on the lookout for the remainder of this. And in the meantime, we'll talk to you again on the next one.